Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, preparations are underway as President Bongbong Marcos travels to the United States next week. Addressing the United Nations General Assembly, focusing on the rule of law, climate change, and food security. A potential meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden and the business community. Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Manuel Romualdez, joins us live. President Bongbong Marcos is set to tackle climate change, food security, and the rule of law in his upcoming speech at the 77th United Nations General Assembly in New York. Malacanang says this is the president's first engagement with the United Nations, an important multilateral partner for the country. Some 152 heads of state and government are expected to attend the general debate. The chief executive is also expected to meet with business leaders in the U.S. to present his economic plans for the Philippines.
The president's statement will also articulate his administration's priorities, which includes climate change, the rule of law, and food security. In the draft statement that the DFA prepared for the president, there is a very strong section on the rule of law and the role of the UNCLOS. But of course, the way these things go, the statements and speeches of the president are usually vetted by the office of the president. So beyond that, I cannot offer any further comments.
And let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Manuel Romualdez. Ambassador, it's good to see you again. Welcome back to the source.
Very good to see you, Pinky. Thank you very much for inviting me.
How are you?
I'm good, and I hope everything's well with you too. It's been quite some time since I guested in your program, so I look forward to this special program that you always have. My favorite, The Source.
Thank you, Ambassador. This is going to be the first engagement of President Bongbong Marcos in the UN General Assembly. Tell us the importance or the significance of this to the president and, of course, to the Philippines.
Well, as you know, the United Nations is the forum for the world, and this is going to be the first time, of course, our president will be addressing the world technically. And we suggested it to him even before the elections. When we saw that he was going to win the elections, we thought that it would be a great place for him to be able to elucidate on whatever he sees on the global stage. So I think President Marcos agreed to it not too long ago, when I think our Secretary of Foreign Affairs had a briefing on him on the projected trips that he will have in the next couple of months and the next year even. As you know, the world is getting smaller, and definitely it's a global village, and definitely we, the Philippines, has a role to play. And I think this upcoming trip of the president to the United Nations very and for him also. There are a lot of people who are actually very eager to meet him. Many heads of state have indicated that they'd like to have a bilateral meeting with the president.
Interesting. Also, it's good to note that I believe in the past 2 years, President Duterte had attended the UN General Assembly virtually. And of course, prior to that, and during that time was the pandemic. This is the first time, would this be the first time, Ambassador, that mostly all would be attending face-to-face the UN General Assembly?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I think they did not have this for, I would think, almost 3 years or 2.5 years at least. So everyone is really looking for it. I understand that there's over 100 now, over 100 heads of state that have committed or have made confirmed to attend the General Assembly. So this is going to be, well, for New York City, it's going to be chaotic because everybody knows that whenever there's a UN General Assembly with all the heads of state, it's going to be, they say, a lot of traffic, and New Yorkers are not very pleased with it. But it's very important, just the same, for the United Nations to have this kind of assembly, especially after so many years in hiatus because of the pandemic. And I think it's just timely that President Marcos is going to attend this first one after so many years, or a couple of years that the UN has been holding their general assemblies in virtually.
Can you share us any initial talks you've had with the president regarding his upcoming attendance?
Well, the last time I spoke to him, of course, I was with Secretary Manalo when they briefed him on the trip. He was, of course, very hesitant to take too many trips just right after his election. But Secretary Manalo and the rest of the DFA team said that there are really some trips that is very important for us. Of course, number one is the trip that he made to Indonesia and Singapore. They are our ASEAN neighbors and our close allies and friends, which he was able to do the other week. And of course, we have the UN General Assembly, which again is very important, where a lot of countries are very eager to hear President Marcos. And I understand that there's, of course, the ASEAN, the APEC, and many other commitments that we have to make. So I think the general idea is for the president to get these trips going. And as you know, it's really important now more than ever that the head of state of our country goes out in person, especially after 2 years of being in isolation, so to speak, for many countries. So I think this is going to be really an opportune time for to be able to tell the world on what programs the Philippines has and what we are doing and what we hope to be able to achieve in the global stage.
The president leaves on Sunday, I believe, September 18, and the DFA already said that he is set to speak on September 20. I believe that will be a Tuesday at 3:15 p.m. New York time. That would be about 3:15 a.m. Manila time. And there are 3 topics that will be discussed: rule of law, climate change, and food security. Have you seen the draft or a copy of his speech?
Well, no, I have not seen it, but although I have an idea from what I'm told by our friends that the president would like to really touch on the recovery of the world post-pandemic. And of course, climate change is something that it's always been very important for him, an issue that really has to be completely, always an issue that we have to keep pushing because we are one of the most vulnerable countries in the world when it comes to climate change. Food security, which is very important. Everyone is eating it now. Prices are going up and so forth and so on. And of course, global peace. It's essentially the general idea for his speech, I'm sure, will be global peace and prosperity for all.
But maybe it's good to kind of touch on these 3 topics. First would be the rule of law. Let's talk about that. I guess, how would this be best addressed in the international stage when the president talks about rule of law?
Well, that one, I'm afraid I don't have very much knowledge of what the president plans to do as far as the rule of law. And I'm sure you're referring to the rule of law when it comes to the seas, the problem we have with the South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea. So that one, I think, is something that he probably will make a decision on whether he will take it up at the global stage. But I think the general idea is for him to be able to push more for the world to start really looking at climate change as a very important part of what, I mean, this is an urgent matter that I think the world needs to take take stock of, because we see it everywhere. We see it now in the country. We see it here in the United States. And of course, many of our friends and allies are very pleased that we're taking a very strong stand on this one. We made a commitment, a very strong commitment, being a small country, into what is expected of us to contribute to the mitigation of climate change.
But I guess it's also important to note, Ambassador, if the president would even reiterate, because you talked about the South China Sea a while ago, the country's win in the Permanent Court of Arbitration. Do you think the president will, or are you expecting a strong statement from the president regarding this? In the last UNGA, President Duterte, and I quote, said, "No amount of willful disregard by any country, however big and powerful, can diminish the arbitral award's importance." Again, my question is, would it be, is this something we can expect from the president to reiterate the country's position and the country's win in the Permanent Court of Arbitration?
I'm quite certain. Yes, I think, Pinky, I think that those are one of the points given as an outline by the Department of Foreign Affairs. Although it's clear what the president has already said, especially the State of the Nation. So I'm not sure whether he's going to repeat it again, what he had said when he made that speech at the state at the SONA. So it's unclear. But what's important really is the fact that he would like to touch on very important issues that the global stage has to really take stock of. As far as the rule of law, it's sort of like confined to our area of the world, and perhaps that will be addressed in another speech that he might have in the future when it comes to perhaps in the ASEAN meeting, or perhaps in another forum where these things will be discussed.
And you were talking about climate change a while ago, very important, of course. This will be discussed, I'm obviously, during the United Nations General Assembly. At this point, Ambassador, maybe it's good to find out what kind of call to action will the Marcos administration possibly push to address climate change. And also, maybe I'll do a follow-up here already that we have, of course, a goal to cut greenhouse emissions. When I was looking back about a year ago, that the goal was about 70 to 75% cut by the year 2030. Again, do you feel that, how important is it that the president actually talk about what kind of actions or specific actions or goals his administration will have with regards to climate change?
Well, for one thing, we are already, at least a program that our energy department is looking at is really alternative sources of energy, especially clean energy. That's a priority for the president. We need energy, but at the same time, we'll have to start looking at the future. So I think he has, on many occasions, talked about clean energy, particularly the small, the modular nuclear power plants, which hopefully will be available to the world in the next year or so as a start. And then, of course, we have solar energy. And of course, clearly the president is much into it because he was one of those that pushed for it when he was the governor of Ilocos. And you know, Ilocos Norte now is filled up with this windmills, which actually is a source of energy for the Ilocos region now. So all of this, and hydroelectric is another one of those that he's looking at. At the same time, we are opening up our mining, especially when it comes to nickel, which is a very important source to make batteries, which is going to be a very strong, there will be a very strong market for nickel in the future. We see that here in the United States, where electric cars are now marketed, and so many things that will require this type of mineral. So we're really poised to put ourselves in that situation where we will be a supplier and a consumer of clean energy.
And I guess more of this will be discussed possibly in November during the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Egypt.
That's correct. Actually, the president wanted to attend that, but because he has so many trips already lined up, I don't think he'll be able to make it, although he has indicated that in the past that he wanted to attend that because it's very close to his heart, climate change.
All right, still to come, we'll get more updates on the possible meeting between President Marcos and US President Joe Biden. We'll be taking a very short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Babe Romualdez. Ambassador, so as I mentioned a while ago, the president leaves on Sunday, that's September 18, and he's set to speak on September 20, Tuesday. Any activities lined up prior to his speech?
Well, I think he'll be arriving if I recall the schedule, he'll be arriving late in the afternoon or evening. So most likely his schedule will start the next day. The DTI is actually the one coordinating his meetings that they've set up for business meetings with major American companies that are interested in investing in the Philippines. Also, we have American companies that are already operating in the Philippines and would like to expand their operations. So there's his schedule is quite tight. If I remember correctly, the DTI, of course, as I said, is in charge of this. We have our trade attaché in New York and our trade attaché here in Washington are the people that are responsible for his schedule, and they're putting it all together. He is bringing with him several of our, not only our top businessmen, but even some businessmen that are not well known, but at the same time, they're very aggressive in luring partnerships with U.S. companies.
But would you be able to tell us any companies now interested to invest or set up shop in the country, or even companies, U.S. companies existing now in the country and want to expand their operations here?
Well, let me see now. I know that there's going to be a meeting with Cargill, which is a large conglomerate here, and if I remember, they do have a scheduled meeting with the president. There's also a infrastructure forum that I think is being set up by the DTI, where we will have several companies that are interested in the infrastructure program of the Philippines. And of course, as I said, there's the clean energy. New Scale is one of them that I think is also being scheduled to meet with the president. Boeing is another company, a large American company. They're looking into clean energy for their new aircraft that's being developed right now, and the Philippines could be a source of a certain kind of waste that is available in the Philippines. It's actually waste coming from agricultural products. So all of these things kind of jibe into what the president wants to do. He wants to increase productivity of agriculture, but at the same time start looking into energy. And I think that this planned meetings that you will have with several of these companies is really going to be very beneficial.
And let's talk about a possible meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden. Will this happen?
Well, we have, as long as maybe about a month ago, we've been talking to the White House. As I told you, schedules for this bilateral meetings is really something that cannot be confirmed, but it will only start when as we get closer. And of course, we all know the sad news about Queen Elizabeth's passing. And so President Biden has already said that he will be going to London. So that kind of changed a lot of schedules. He had scheduled meetings with other heads of state, but all that is being changed, and obviously we're affected by that. But just the same, I'm very confident that that will happen, and we're very eager for this meeting to take place because the United States, of course, is a very important ally.
Right. But was it already planned prior to what happened that the US president was set to meet with the Philippine president? Was there a schedule prior
Well,
to
you know,
the passing of Queen Elizabeth?
well, on two occasions. The first time, President Biden was the first head of state to call President Marcos 2 days after he won the election. And they talked about getting together and meeting at some point. And then, of course, when President Biden sent one of his close friends, the husband of Vice President Harris, Kamala, Mr. Anhoff, the second gentleman, and he delivered a message that he would like that President Biden was inviting President Marcos, if their schedules meet, that they'll be able to get together in person. So those are indications that there is a eagerness for President Biden to meet our new president, and of course, President Marcos is also eager to meet President Biden. So both sides want to do it. It's a matter of just the schedules really getting together. And as I said,
Right.
The United Nations is not an easy thing to put together. I'm seeing it now. I'm here and I'm sort of like coordinating this whole thing. It's an easy task with all the schedules changing almost every day. But one thing for sure is that President Biden is hosting all the heads of state at the United Nations in New York for a reception. So definitely they will be meeting there. But of course, we're looking at an opportunity for them to sit down and have a longer discussion on our relationship.
I see. And when is this reception?
I think it's been moved from the 20th to the 21st or somewhere there. But again, that is being confirmed by the White House.
Right.
This reception, something that's traditional. The President of the United States usually gives a reception for all the heads of state that are attending the United Nations.
Again, as we mentioned a while ago, Ambassador, this will be very big because it's been a number of years since all or most world leaders will be participating the UN General Assembly this month, face to face. Again, we need to take a very short break. We will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez. Ambassador, so any other confirmed meetings that you can share with us with other heads of state, other leaders?
Well, we have the Prime Minister of Japan. We've been able to put a fix on that one. And then the Malaysian Prime Minister is also the other. And I think the President of the EU is also expected to have a bilateral meeting with President Marcos. And I think there are two others that are awaiting confirmation. So he'll probably have at least 6 to 8 meetings with heads of state. There's also been a request for meetings with other heads of state from Latin America and also from the African states. So we're still waiting for word on that one. So again, like I said, there are a lot of moving parts in these meetings in the United Nations. Yeah. It's as I said, there are over 100 who are wanting to meet each other. Just imagine what kind of New York is into right now, and all the embassies. My colleagues, the ASEAN colleagues, are all scrambling for all sorts of things. We're all in the same boat. We're looking at how we can put all these meetings together, and it's a lot of work. And I'm very lucky to have a good staff here in Washington D.C., and we have a good staff also in New York. And I thank, of course, our newly minted ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Lagdameo, who has been very supportive and allowing his staff to be able to get together with our staff, and we're working together in putting a lot of these meetings together.
Ambassador, I understand there will be a Philippine economic briefing also in New York, also a CEO roundtable discussion with targeted sectors. Is there any more details you can share with us regarding these?
Yes, that one is definitely a must. No matter what, that will go through, even if the president will not be able to make it, depending on, of course, on his schedule. But we have our economic team headed by Secretary Ben Jokno, who's been very effective, I understand, in Singapore and in Indonesia. So we're going to duplicate that in New York. We have so many who want to attend that. In fact, I think we're having difficulty in trying to accommodate as many people as possible, and many companies. The roundtable, of course, is another one that we are putting together, and again, it's an overflowing a number of people who would like to join that forum. There's also a planned speaking engagement of the president with the USSA and Business Council. It's a very important institution based here in Washington, D.C., and they are hosting forum for heads of state, and more particularly, they're very interested in President Marcos because, of course, he just got newly elected. So there's a lot of these requests, and how I wish he could stay longer, but I know he said that I can't stay too long because he wants to go back to Manila, where, of course, he has to attend to the many things that are going on in our country.
And very important, of course, would there be a meeting with the Filipino community as well?
Well, again, there's been a lot of requests from as far as Guam and Honolulu, Hawaii, and California, of course. So I told our Consul General and our consulate in New York, and also all over the country, we have 7 consulates, that we'll just try to put them all in one place. So we are still putting that together, and hopefully we'll be able to confirm. At least the president will be able to meet them. We have a very nice hall in our consulate in New York, the Kalayaan Hall, which has been used extensively in the past. So we're hoping that the president will be able to drop by and meet with the many Filipino communities here in the United States.
This will definitely be a jam-packed schedule for President Bongbong Marcos. Ambassador, again, just to reiterate, the president will be leaving on Sunday. His speech at the UN General Assembly will be on Tuesday at 3:15, supposed to be p.m. New York time. That would be 3:15 a.m. Manila time. Good luck, Ambassador.
Sure.
And we will await, of course, the speech of the president.
Thank you very much, Pinky. Appreciate it. And it's always nice to see you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.